Madonna recounts, "My mother passed away when I was 4 years old, and my father remarried about a year later. I was the only child my mother, may she rest in peace, had. The woman my father married had 3 sons. He allowed them to live with us in our home and took care of them alongside me. He treated them like his own sons. I never saw him differentiate between any of us, despite being his only biological daughter. However, after 5 years, my father passed away. His departure revealed the true nature of those around me. The way they treated me changed drastically, and I began to suffer from violence, hardship, and cruelty. My stepmother was hard-hearted. She prevented me from receiving an education and made me her servant. She would not allow me to go out or play with my friends. If I refused her demands, she would make me sleep without food for 2 consecutive days. When I turned 15, my stepmother arranged for me to marry a very poor young man without inquiring about his background, occupation, or whether he was a responsible individual. She didn't even ask about his morals or lineage. All she cared about was getting me out of the house to take control of my father's inheritance. At that time, I didn't object, fearing she would do something worse to me. I entrusted my fate to God and prayed for my husband to be kind, compassionate, and caring, as I was weak and alone in this world. I got married, but my stepmother did not hold a wedding ceremony for me like others had. I moved in with the young man to his house, which was beautiful, spacious, and tidy. I was surprised and thought to myself how he could own all this when he was poor. After a month, I was taken aback when he told me we would be moving to another house. I asked him, "What about this house? Isn't it yours?" He replied, "It's not mine. It belongs to a friend who lives abroad. He is returning to live with his family in his house." I said, "No problem." The next day, we moved to his real house, and I was shocked when I saw it was a ruin with walls made of fabric and cardboard. I looked at him and saw him crying, so I asked, "Why are you crying, my dear?" He said, "Because I haven't told you the truth from the beginning, and I was afraid you would leave me and return to your home." I reassured him, "I don't mind living in a ruin as long as we are happy together." Days passed, and I began to adapt to life in our dilapidated home. I endured the situation. Years have passed, yet we were still living in a dilapidated and unsuitable house. I had given birth to 2 daughters, but our situation continued to deteriorate. My husband was unemployed, and most days he returned home empty-handed. One day, as we were sleeping soundly, heavy rains poured down, accompanied by strong winds. Our weak house could not withstand the storm and collapsed on us while we were asleep. Thankfully, none of us were injured, but we found ourselves exposed to the elements. We waited until the rains stopped and the sky cleared before trying to rebuild our home, which was in even worse shape than before. One night, my husband came home looking sorrowful, and I could tell from his expression that he had no money to buy food. I reassured him, "Don't be sad, dear. We still have some leftovers from lunch, but we are running low on bread." I quickly dressed and went out to seek help from our neighbors, hoping someone would give us bread or lend us money for it. I knocked on every door, but to no avail. Everyone apologized but had nothing to spare. My heart felt like it was breaking for my children. One of my daughters was ill and struggling with dehydration. I sat outside the house and eventually broke down in tears. I cried until my tears were spent, and then I went back inside. When I saw my children looking at me with hope for bread, I couldn't hold back my tears. I cried out, "Forgive me, my children. I couldn't bring you bread." In that dark night, the poor girl sat in a corner of the house, gazing into her children's hungry eyes. Their small hearts were aching from hunger, and she felt powerless to provide what they needed. Her husband, who had been desperately seeking work, returned home disappointed, his eyes filled with tears. "I can't bear to see our children in this state," he whispered, voice broken. The girl decided to take action. She left the house once more, determined to search the neighboring areas for anything that could help her family. The streets were dark, with stars twinkling in the sky, but all she could see was the surrounding darkness. As she wandered, she noticed a group of people gathered around a food vendor. She approached them and overheard them discussing food that had been donated to those in need. Hope rekindled in her heart, and she decided to inquire about how to obtain some food. When she approached the vendor, He told her that she could receive some food if she needed it. Without hesitation, she explained her family's situation. The vendor smiled kindly and gave her a bag of bread and some vegetables. She returned home, her heart filled with joy. When her husband saw her, he asked what she had brought. As she revealed the food, their eyes filled with tears, this time tears of joy.
They sat together, shared the food, and laughter began to return to their home. They realized that love and cooperation were what they needed to overcome difficult times. In that moment, the girl understood that life can be tough, but hope is always present. And even in the darkest times, blessings can come from unexpected places. From that day on, the couple decided to work together, whether searching for employment or helping others in their community. They became examples of resilience and hope, and they began to build a better life for themselves and their children. As time passed, the girl began to feel despair, but her love for her children motivated her to keep fighting. One day, while searching for food in the market, she overheard a conversation about a local cooking competition. The prize was a substantial cash amount. Though she had no special tools or ingredients, the girl considered participating. She decided to utilize her cooking experience and started preparing a traditional dish with simple ingredients. She hoped that winning could bring some stability to her family. When the day of the competition arrived, the girl felt nervous but was determined to give her best. When it was her turn, she presented the dish she had lovingly prepared. It tasted delicious and impressed the judges. After the competition, the winners were announced, and to her surprise, the girl won first place. Her eyes filled with tears, not just from joy, but from a sense of dignity and recognition of her talent. She returned home, prize in hand, her face shining with hope. When her husband and children saw her, they embraced her joyfully. The win was not merely a financial reward, it marked a new beginning for all of them. In time, the girl began using the prize to start her own cooking business, where she prepared and sold traditional dishes in the market. With the success of her venture, she started helping others in her community. Meanwhile, her father's ex-wife began to feel envy over the girl's success. However, the girl was unbothered and focused on her family, assisting them in building a better life. She realized that true strength comes from within, and that love and collaboration can overcome any difficulties. Thus, the girl's life transformed from poverty and suffering to success and prosperity. At the same time, the ex-wife lived in her lavish home, enjoying the inheritance she received after the girl's father's passing. However, as months went by, unexpected events began to unfold. The ex-wife's children thought they could sell the home without consequences, unaware that the girl had been left half of the house as part of her inheritance.
When the siblings decided to sell the home, they forged official documents to claim they were the rightful owners. However, things did not go according to their plan. A local lawyer, who knew the girl and her family, learned of the sale and began to suspect the authenticity of the documents, leading to an investigation. Soon, the forgery was uncovered. The police were called, and investigations commenced. During this time, the girl was busy with her cooking project, but she heard about the forgery discovery. Shocked, she realized this was an opportunity to reclaim her rights. The girl went to court with her lawyer, presenting evidence that she was the legitimate heir to the house. Although she was nervous, her faith in her rights was strong. After lengthy court sessions, the judge ruled in her favor, and the house was returned to her. Returning to the home brought back beautiful memories of her father and family. She decided to transform the house into a community center, where she could help others, offer cooking classes, and provide food for the needy. She became a symbol of hope and resilience in her community. As for the ex-wife's children, they faced the consequences of their actions. They were prosecuted for forgery and learned a harsh lesson about the repercussions of greed and disrespecting others' rights. In this way, the girl regained her home and began a new life filled with hope and assistance for others, realizing that true success comes not only from money but from the ability to make a difference in the lives of others.